mortgages and they're losing their houses and everything because our taxes are much too high. You have to consider that Rye Town is over the village of Portchester. The city of Rye is different, okay? And over Rye Brook and over part of Mamaroneck. There's a big difference here. And you have to understand what we're all about. And if you come from out of town, you don't know anything about the village. So please, take into consideration, we are an antique stick community, and we are suffering. It's not being taken into consideration is age, condition, and location. And that is a very big problem here in the village of Portchester. It may not be in other communities, but it is here. We go back to the 1800s. We go back to the early 1900s in a lot of these houses. And they cannot be fixed or anything. A lot of things are happening in the houses, and the people are struggling. And they can't. They can't. Okay? So please help. Help. Help.
Thank you. No, hold on. We're going to try and answer the questions. Thank you, Goldie. I guess there's 2 points. One is, you mentioned taxes are too high. I just want to make it clear that the valuation process has absolutely nothing to do with your tax bill, okay, as a whole, right?
The valuation is based on sales and
the fact that your tax,
yeah, but the fact, condition and location.
Okay, the fact that your taxes are too high has nothing to do with the overall assessment, right? The schools require a certain amount of spending, the villages require a certain amount of spending, the counties, that level of spending, right, supported by taxes doesn't change. The only thing we do here is allocate that tax burden. Okay, so the level of tax. Okay, anyway, that's the first. So Goldie, come on, we're having a process.
We don't earn money.
The second thing is, Mr. Arnold, could you get up and answer the question about age, condition, and location? How you took that into account, please?
Yeah, age, location, and condition is taken into account, and if you'd like, you can come into the hearing tomorrow. I can show you on your property record card. You can see it online. You can see the neighborhood valuation.
You have to come to the house.
Goldie, come on, please. There's a process. Let him finish.
I can show you the valuations in one neighborhood versus another neighborhood, and the difference is I can illustrate that in black and white to you. I can show you the depreciation on your house, any additional depreciation on your house, which I know for a fact is substantial. The differences in the locations of Portchester versus the village of Rye. I can show you this in black and white. In fact, you can look online and see the depreciation, the condition of the houses. You can see the quality of the houses. You can see them online, or you can come in and I can show you them. But I assure you, the condition was taken into consideration, and it's in black and white on your property record card.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arnold. We now have, thank you, Mr. Arnold. We now have a quorum. Can we just call the meeting formally to order, please?
The meeting for June 27, 2011 is now called to order. Gelfarb?
Aye.
Mendocino?
Aye.
Nyors? Villanova? Carvin?
Here. Okay. More questions, Mr. Santon?
Can I do that? Say
No,
one
please.
thing? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
please.
but you can come up, Dean. I hate to say that, do this to Mitchell, but it just seems that 12 to 5 for people who are working is a little difficult. We should have maybe some evening hours or some weekend hours. And also for the older people to put stuff online, like I know like my mother and my family, they don't use computers. They don't want to be online. So we have to also think about that too when we factor everything in. Sorry,
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Santon?
try to make this quick because I jotted down a bunch of things when the gentlemen were speaking. First of all, you mentioned about 350 sales in the town. 126 of them, for example, are in Rye Brook. I foiled them and got them. It wasn't clear to me why, since it's in Excel format, which is a spreadsheet format people can play with, why it wasn't in Excel format on your website. It's a very simple document to put up, and it should be more transparent. Number two, under the ORC's website, it talks about there are 3 accepted approaches for determining market value: comparable sales, income, and cost. It appears while Mr. Arnold and Mr. Markowitz talk a lot about comparing to sales during the July 1 to July 08 to July 1, 2010 period, it appears that looking at the cost data breakdown that they're really doing a cost approach, not a comparable sales approach. So I'm confused. Maybe they could explain which they are, because they seem to at different times talk like they're a comparable sales approach, but the reality is, if you look at the data, which is only online in the Vision database here at 10 Pearl Street, which is a 2-page sheet, you can't get that on the web. And that brings up another topic. With all this valuable cost data, which is really if you look at the math, it's how they get to their numbers for both land and buildings and outbuildings. The question is, why isn't, with a year and a half to work on this reval 2011, why wasn't it on the Vision Appraisal website? I was led to believe, and I'm a pretty well-informed person, I was led to believe that everything I could get online, I didn't have to come to 10 Pearl Street to go to sit down at a monitor here. I could do it in the comfort of my own home with my own PC. So I'd like to explain why that valuable, vital cost data is not available to the general public on their website. Also, Mr. Arnold talked at the April 26th Board of Trustee meeting in Rybrook about all the geospan photos and ortho images and so forth. Is he talking about anything other than what the town already had on the SDG NYS database? Because if you look at Vision Appraisal's database, it's one small photo which is taken exactly from April 2009 photography that the town commissioned separately. And so if you have anywhere between a dozen to 20 pictures per property on the website that the assessor buried until Monday, June 13th, after an editorial by the Westmore News and others complaining, like myself, I want to know why you have all those pictures on the SDG NYS database, why it isn't on the Vision Appraisal database. I'd also like the assessor to explain how we process building permits versus final certificates of occupancy, which have more details, describe the actual improvements in terms of able to be occupied, and also detail the certified cost. Often the permit is understated, and by the time a project comes to fruition, a year, 2 years later, it's morphed into a much bigger project. Also, Mr. Arnold talks about that the Vision website shows the prior value versus the current value. I'd like to know where. I've looked at it since March, and I don't see that. I see whatever the current value is, whether it's the preliminary back then and now the tentative. I don't see a comparison. I had to do that for a 120 parcel neighborhood known as Byram Ridge, which brings me to the next thing. The Byram Ridge, which is a subdivision, about 90 acres, that includes about 120 parcels, goes back to, it's one of the oldest.
Actually, Mr. Just let me I want to make sure I got your question.
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to be fast.
No. So I'm saying, so the first question I have is why not the Excel format on the website?
Yeah.
The second question I have is Orbs talks about comparable sales, income, and cost. It seems that they used more of a cost approach versus comparable sales approach. I just want to make sure I got these right.
Yeah. I was given the impression it was a comparable sales approach, which is why they refer you to their booklet on the counter
Mr. Arnold, Mr. Arnold, Mr. Marcos, make sure you're taking notes. So I want to make sure we answer
because I think you're really a cost approach reval, not a sales approach, and so I'm kind of confused.
Yep. Then you had the.
Why is the Vision Appraisal database is different if you come to 10 Pearl Street than if you go online.
Okay.
What you get at 10 Pearl Street is far more valuable and far more detailed than what you can get on the web. And most people, I guarantee you, including elected officials, don't even know that.
Right. Okay. We got that. And then you had
4 is the contrast between using building permit data, which is what the assessor uses.
Certificates of
The
occupancy.
assessor advised me that he didn't know that he should ask for the certificate of occupancy information from, for example, the Rybrook Building Department.
Yeah.
I explained to him that the building inspector told me that he gets that data automatically. So the question is, why would you use, say, a $100,000 initial permit cost when the final project comes in at $300,000, and you should have used the most recent certified number?
So let me, and then you have prior value versus actual value. Why isn't that appears? You can't find that on the Vision website.
Right. I just heard that for the first time tonight, so I made a note.
Now,
And
is it fair to say that your other questions are about?
I only have 2 more topics, so if you let me just.
Yeah, good. That's okay.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, the other question
Byram
is,
Ridge, right? Yeah,
but the other question also was why all the photos that Mr. Arnold talked about at the Rybrook Board of Trustees meeting, geospan photos and ortho images, is he talking about what the town already had, or is he bringing any new pictures to the party? Because I don't see that he's used any new photography. I also as you know, I've been sampling data, and as I've done for years with the original 2004 reval, and I've noticed, I defy Mr. Arnold to tell me when I've shown him certain very glaring examples of that it's impossible for someone to be curbside and miss massive structures that are 30 feet from the road. It's just impossible. So I really dispute whether his people, whoever they did, if they outsourced it, it's clear to me that they didn't go to every curb. Now getting to the last two topics, the Byron Ridge area, which I described before, was, there was a lot of tweaks of data. As the gentleman that spoke first from Country Ridge talked about, land values went up, land values went down, building went up. There was a lot of what I call a lot of manipulation of data with no rhyme or reason, as the gentleman from Country Ridge pointed out. After having done that, including some properties in Byron Ridge that had their land go up 40-something%, 30-something%, 2 months later,
the overall valuation or the overall
every
valuation
parcel,
of land value?
120 parcels in Byron Ridge went up across the board approximately 20% on May 27th, which notice people got too late for the informal review on June 2nd after the roll was locked in.
Just to be clear, the
You
overall
included,
value.
me included,
Yeah, no, I understand
Councilman Nyros
I'm
included.
very well aware that I'm
No.
included. But just to
Yeah.
be clear, I just want to get the numbers right. So you're saying 120 parcels went up 20%?
No matter what was done in March, everybody
I
had adjustments made in March. After that was done in March, which you would have thought was a year and a half in the making
Right.
of a work product, 2 months later, on May 27th, as
Right.
the roll was about to be certified, the tentative roll,
Right.
they added 20% to the land component of every parcel in Byron Ridge, about 120.
No, but I just want to be exactly. I
With
want
maybe
to,
one or two exceptions.
okay, but I want to be clear on the numbers here, so people at
Okay.
home understand as well as I understand. Because the land component, as I understand, is basically about 25% of the overall valuation. Just taking a rough look.
I don't know that. I've
Okay,
never
so-
heard that number.
No, I'm just that's I looked at
You did your own
I did
analysis.
my own analysis because, because my own property, my view is that is got too much house component, not enough land component. But anyway, so
Well, not to be personal,
But I'm just-
for example,
Yeah.
yours is a good example. Your land went up 43.86%
Right.
on March 31st.
Right.
That wasn't enough. They added another 20% 2 months later. That begs the question. If you had a year and a half to do your work, and you used the same sales from 08 to 2010, and you only had two sales in Byron Ridge, 13 Woodland Drive in July 24th of 08, and 57 Hillendale next door to you, which sold for under $900,000 in November of 2009, and you knew that for a year. How could you then, using the same two sales, which was what Mr. Arnold said to me about a week ago, how could you use those two very sales a second time in May and come up with, we got to give everybody in Byron Ridge 20% more on the
so but I want to be clear.
Yeah.
Because the land value component went up.
20% across the
I
board.
understand, and which my estimate is that the land value is about 25%, broadly speaking.
All right.
So if the land value went up 20% and nothing else changed, your overall valuation, right, 20% or 25 would have only gone up about 5%. Just if that right.
But
No, let me just finish the point.
Okay.
Because the real reason let me tell you where I'm trying to go. Is
I'm just kidding.
Oh, sure. And I'm going to let Mr. Arnold ask the question, but I just want to make sure. So the point is, obviously, you've been, first of all,
And
actually,
I know this because I've done a 13-page spreadsheet tracking every change from last year to March to May, so
in fact, actually,
I'm swinging it.
well, first of all, no.
And I'm going to share it with you when I tweet
Yes.
it. Probably in the next day or so, I'm going to give it to you.
Well, actually, let me actually take a second to stop and say, I really want to thank you. No, I'm serious. I want to thank you for all the hard work you put into this. I'm very serious. Because, our whole goal is only to get this right. And I know Mr. Arnold's worked very hard to get it right. I know Mr. Marco's got it, and we've worked very hard to get it right. Now, we
I feel
may
like
not have
today's
everything
on
right.
foot 04. Different people,
Well,
different vendors. But it's like, I think at some point in time, the assessment office is going to get it right.
Well, anyway, but so I want to get the actual numbers clear,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, because my point is the Byron Ridge section, as I understand it, year to year went down 1% overall, year to year. You're absolutely correct that from the preliminary assessment to the secondary assessment. I understand the problem and concerns, and those are very legitimate concerns
Yeah.
because less time to grieve came as a
No time to
surprise.
grieve.
Well, you had time to grieve. You had no
Oh.
time for an informal review.
Yeah.
So you had no time for an informal
Or
review.
very little time
And
to
little time to
get
grieve.
ready
So
for a grievance.
exactly. So those are very fair, legitimate points and something we have to address.
Some also, a few of them went up 33%. on-
Land values.
Yeah.
No,
land.
but just want to be clear, there's no valuation.
Let's put a
No,
number
but sorry,
on
Mr.
that.
Sen, I just want to get the question right.
No.
So I just want, I'm not trying to trick you. I'm saying
You're
that
not
the Byram Ridge assessments overall went down 1%.
I don't know
year to
that.
year.
You're saying that, I don't know
because
that.
I know you'll confirm it. And we'll,
I know that Mr. Arnold and Mr. Markowitz at the April 26th meeting, which I didn't see live, I only saw about a week ago on streaming video at the Rybrook website. I noticed that they said about 2/3 of the properties went down and 1/3 went up. So the problem is, if you were people that maybe went up or stayed about the same or flat, you were lulled into thinking, okay, everything's good.
Right.
All of a sudden, boom, June 2nd, you get your mail, and boom. Now, I know people that didn't even read that notice very carefully
Sure.
and didn't know, and when you say 20%, you're talking basically some properties went up $80,000 for a May 27th land adjustment. So, moving on.
so the question is, how did they go up 20% from the initial
Right,
tentative
Mr. Arnold
assessment?
explained to me about a week
Right.
ago on a conference call that he used the 13 Woodland sale, which was from July 24th of '08, and the 57 Hillendale sale, which was from November of '09. And I said to him, well, those two sales were they were the only two
Sure.
of four from the neighborhood in a 2-year period.
And they were
So
already
you
in the database.
you already used them for your March work.
Right, exactly.
Why is this like you get to use the data a second time? And
No, so it's a very-
I think you know what it is. I think they had a dialogue at a public meeting about anecdotal stuff about Byram Ridge isn't high enough, and so they raised some people and they lowered people. So let's make an adjustment to the wealthy section of the village, and they won't feel it. I think that's what happened. I don't think they can sustain their numbers. And I think they make it up as they go.
Well, okay.
And I think there's a class action lawsuit or something of that ilk
That's fine.
in the works if it's even feasible.
That's fine, but the question is,
That's
why
how
did...
passionate I believe about it.
Sure, no, I understand. And then but the question is, why do land values go up 20% from the initial tentative roll to the
Right.
roll?
And also, just to clarify, at the April 26th meeting, they also explained that land, they really don't have sales of land, so it's very hard to do. So I'd like to know what scientific study, what analysis they did to come up with that. And there's a lot of different properties in Byram Ridge. It's not all Hillendale and Woodland and
Sure.
Edgewood. There's Lock Lane. There's small parcels. There's parcels that are half acre. There's parcels that are an acre and a half. So you can't just take one 20% fix and apply it to 120 parcels and think you did a good thing. The last topic is if the tax roll is certified as being 100% of market value each and every year since the '04 reval, that begs the question, why so much, and this is, getting back to what the gentleman from Country Ridge saw, why so much manipulation in the 2011 assessments of land and building? You had people that had their house going down 30, 40%, and their land going the other way. You had every which way, and there was no rhyme or reason. And so if the assessor is doing his job every year, and hopefully the assessor is doing his job with or without a consultant, whether it's MJW years ago or Vision Appraisal today, the assessor is a professional and doing his job and knows his market. And I don't care if there's 11,000 parcels, and I'm really tired of hearing there's 11,000 parcels because you're supposed to know your product.
Sure.
And if you value, 1,000 stocks, you can't complain, I got too much work to do. The bottom line is, if you're supposed to certify every year, and the state also certifies that this is 100% market reval, then how could they be so off that they had to make all the changes they made both in March and then again in May? It makes me feel like they really don't know what they're doing, and they're just playing with numbers. And that's... Thank you.
Thank you.
The sad part is you're playing with people's money, and it's a lot of money. And just not to minimize, when you talk about a 20% change in one neighborhood, And it's exactly what the Rybrook Board of Trustees were concerned about when they said, are you going to make any wholesale changes to a neighborhood without giving people an opportunity? Mr. Markowitz was very clear, I can't guarantee that. Of course, he knew right then and there what he was going to be doing. So I just think it's bad form to do that last minute, and I think it's also unsubstantiated and just terrible to do that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santon.
Thank you.
Well, again, I really do want to say I thank you for your input. I want to thank you for your contributions. I have to say I'm one public official that's going to tell you we don't always get it right. And I'm one public official that's going to tell you we're trying our best. Now, if we had to do it over again, we would have set up more time between the informal interviews and we would have set up more informal interviews after the second round of announcements. That clearly was a mistake. And, I'll take full responsibility for that. We should have done it better. And it's a legitimate concern and a legitimate question, we've just got to do better. And one of the reasons we're having this meeting tonight is precisely because you brought that to our attention. And, that's one of the reasons we're having informal interviews today and tomorrow. Now, those were not envisioned, they were not planned. It doesn't help you if you haven't grieved, I understand that. But certainly, at least this gentleman can hear and hopefully get better answers, get some rhyme or reason. Some other people that have questions can get better answers, or more robust answers to questions. But I want to go through your questions, but I want to thank you for your input and don't want you to think it's fallen on deaf ears. Mr. Arnold, you want to start coming, see if we can answer these questions?
Mayor Reinstein wanted to ask.
Well, no, but she'll have a chance. The first question, there's absolutely no reason why I can take the first one. Why can't we have the sales in Excel format on the website? When we get the sales on the website, can we put that in Excel format? I don't think there's any reason why we can't, is there?
It comes in Excel.
Right. So I would have thought there's no reason. Yeah. So if it's technically feasible, which I got to believe it is, we will do that.
A PDF format, I know we can do. Excel, I'm not so sure, but
Well, if we can, we will. I mean, if it's technically, yeah.
PDF.
No, I understand the PDFs. Look, the whole point is to make it user-friendly. If it's feasible technically, and I can't believe it's not, we'll put it in Excel. I know we emailed it to you in an Excel format, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can email it to you right now.
No,
My BlackBerry.
Okay, the second question, Mr. Arnold, about the Orbs website talks about comparative sales, income, and cost. And the question was, it seems if you did more of a cost approach than a comparative sales approach. Can you just address that question?
Yeah, and we do look at all approaches to value. In mass appraisal, you're valuing universal properties. You need to first of all start with a cost approach so that you're valuing properties consistently. Similar size properties, similar quality properties are getting similar values. That cost approach is adjusted to the market. Each location is different. The land is different from neighborhood to neighborhood. The Byram Ridge is quite a bit more than a property in Portchester. That is the comparison of the sales approach. If you look at any IAAO manual, they'll give you a full chapter explanation on the cost in the market and how that a model is developed using a combination of those two. The income approach is used on commercial properties, and it was used. Those are the three approaches.
So what did you use?
All three.
No, Dean, there's not going to be a debate. You can come up and ask another set of questions if you want. But look,
The idea is to educate. I think it's-
I understand. So I'm going to make an effort to educate. It's very straightforward. It's very straightforward. When I value a stock, it's absolutely no different. I use ratio analysis, PE, EV to EBITDA. I use a discounted cash flow analysis. I use comparable sales if there's been strategic sales in the industry. There is no scientific, absolutely rigorous scientific approach to valuing a home, a stock, or any other asset on the planet Earth. And so it is an art form and a science. So he has to take a feel. He's using those three approaches. That is the answer. There's no other. There's no magic wand. There's no magic answer. That is the answer. In terms of the new database. I don't think we added new photography, did we?
No, we didn't.
Okay. And the vision appraisal database does not have the 12 to 20 pictures. And so let me address this first, if I could. Yes, you're absolutely right. Again, what you have to appreciate, we were gathering data right up until the first notice went out, and after the first notice out. We remember I sent out data mailers. We got 3,000 data mailers back. And let me take this opportunity to say, we're dependent on the people. If we sent you a data mailer and that information is wrong, please tell us. We're going to set up a special email. If we get the data wrong, tell us. If you see something wrong, tell us. But what you have to understand is we were gathering information, pulling down information throughout the last 6 months as well. The data mailer was critical to this process. So it wasn't possible to incorporate all this information and incorporate the SDG data, the 12 to 20 photos, and all the historical data on the same website in the time frame allowed. What we've committed to do is to work towards getting the historical data on the same website by year end. Now, the other issue that was raised in the Westmore News from my good friend Mr. Abel was whether or not we should have the historical data on at the same time as available at the same time as the vision appraisal. I made a judgment call. Again, blame me. Blame me, please blame me. I see our political opponents. Blame me, please blame me. I made a judgment call that I didn't want to confuse the public. I thought there was a prospect that having two databases with this new process going forward, that there was a risk we would confuse the public.
But the question is, why wasn't on Vision's date?
No, so we didn't have time to incorporate all that data.
A year and a half to work on it.
No, but remember, Dean, we were pulling the information in right up until the time of the rolls. So ultimately, that's the answer. We were incorporating data, consistently incorporating data. So again, this is their first year here. This is a process. So again, you can look at other processes around the country. I think ours is going to stack up well. I may be wrong, and certainly every constituent in the town of Rye has an opportunity this November to make a decision on that.
Can I make a point?
Please,
though?
please.
Just so there's no confusion, the difference between the website and the database has to be, you have to know that the images, the geospan images, the aerial photography, the street level photography, the old property record cards, the 1960s property record cards are in the Vision database. They are just not on the web. Our web is not designed to do that. The SDG website has been compiling that on their website. That's what they do. We do assessments, and we put the assessments on our website. But the database, the Vision database, has the photos, they have the images, they have the old property record cards and associated documents. So just to be clear.
I have a question. When you say cost, okay, I did miss the beginning of your presentation because I had other commitments. Are you talking about replacement cost or historical cost?
Replacement cost.
Okay, and how are you measuring that? And I'm particularly curious, for example, some of our speakers have indicated they live in areas with slightly lower cost homes,
Yep.
and some live in areas with higher value homes.
Yep.
How do you take that into account in doing cost?
When you're looking at the cost of a building, the cost of a building is going to be the same whether you put it on this side of the street or the other side of the street. Okay, you're looking at what it would cost to build less depreciation, and then you add land value in. If you look at a land value in Country Ridge, it's going to be substantially higher than it is on a street in Portchester or on the waterfront. That's where the market is giving you the location factor.
Why are you doing depreciation? I fully well understand what depreciation is.
Yep.
But if you're talking about the cost to replace a house,
Yep.
whether in a high-income area, low-income area, or in between,
Yep.
why are you considering depreciation right off the bat?
You can't. I'm not completely doing it right off the bat. I have a brand new house built in 2010 versus a house that's built in 2000 or 1920. Okay, there's depreciation on the 1920 house that isn't there in the 2000.
Well, you're considering that you're when you're costing out the 1920 house, are you costing it to basically reproduce it to the extent that it's there?
Yes.
Or so then the depreciation is already factored in.
No, you're pricing it as if it were new today and then depreciating it based on wear and tear, and you're comparing that to other properties that are that age to see what the effect of age has to do on the sale price.
So pretty much you can only really do it accurately if you went inside everybody's house to see what the inside of the house looked like.
We have information on the buildings historically, and Mitchell's gone through all of that, but we were not contractor to go inside.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying, because, if you look at two different houses and they both look the same on the outside,
Yep.
one could be beautifully manicured on the inside, and one could be, still undone.
Well,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Mendocino, you'll remember we discussed this.
Yeah. No, I
And what we made as a board was, again, a determination that it was not a good cost-value relationship to do physical inspections of the home. The cost of the reval would have been another $400,000.
Also, we have to realize that in terms of doing interior